Hello and welcome back to another episode of Amphibious Analysis. Slothcakes here, and today we're going to be doing part 2 out of our Amphibious Zaku adventures. And if you haven't watched part 1 yet, I'd recommend to do so, so click the link down below, or click that little card thingy in the corner. In the last episode, we covered the Amphibious Zakus of the 1 Year War, the Zaku Marine type, and the Zaku Aqua type, and in this episode we're going to be going over the ones after the 1 Year War, which is roughly Zeta double Zeta time, or UC-87 to UC-89. So like usual, let's go into the lore, history, weapons, and other interesting things, but first let's set the mood and setting. So spoiler alert, the Federation won the 1 Year War, I know, shocker, and to the victor goes the spoils, which in this case translates to the Federation took all of Zeon's shit. But not only that, Einheim Electronics, a major manufacturer for the Federation, absorbed Zeonic Company, a major manufacturer for Zeon. And because of this, Einheim got a lot of workers, scientists, engineers who are all comfortable working with Zeon technology. And because of this is why we see the Federation and Titans during Zeta use Zeon-looking mobile suits or things with mono eyes. And to quickly say, the meta reason why is because it's easy for the viewers to know who the bad guys are because they're piloting the mobile suits with mono eyes. But anyways, and you might be asking why that shoddy, terrible explanation was needed. Why is any of that important? Well, because there's one noteworthy mobile suit to talk about that came out from this, and that is the RMS 106 Zaku. But the Zaku is not important by itself, it's what it helped lead to, because he helped lead to our first mobile suit of discussion, and that is the Marine Zaku. And if you watched part 1, which you should have, he looks like a recolor of the Zaku Marine type, and that's not the only similarities. The Marine Zaku is simple and, shortly put, a Zaku Marine type, but with its upgraded internal frame, joints, and generator. This just means that the Marine Zaku is just overall better in every way compared to the Marine type. And that's that. And we will leave it as that. Because besides that, what I just said is all the changes. He still has the same equipment as the prior, he still has the same weapons, he still has overall the same problems. I went over all this in part 1, so if you're interested, go check that out. But as a useless fun fact, the Marine Zaku appears during Zeta, however the Zaku Marine type has not made an animation appearance. Next, I want to briefly mention the Advance of Zeta manga, where we do see a Marine Zaku and a pretty interesting redesign. Well, we can just say he's very thick, really thick. Anyways, the information about this mobile suit is extremely little, so this is gonna be quick. So besides him being thick as fuck and looking like a Gustav Karl, on his left forearm we do see a weapon attachment. Now I've never read Advance of Zeta, so I actually have no idea what this is. For my guess, it does look like a beam spray gun or some sort of machine gun, or his magnet Harken, which we'll cover in a second. But if you guys actually know what this is, please leave it in the comments because I have no idea. Next is a sub-rock gun, which looks comically big, but still looks familiar. It still has the same silhouette with that weird bump stock, and it still has the 4 tube rockets. We do see an additional attachment on the side, which looks like a camera which could help with aim assist. And finally, on the bottom of the damn thing, we see a massive bayonet. It's a bayonet, it does what you think it does. But hilariously enough, out of all 4 Zakus we're going to be covering, because of this bayonet, this guy's the only one with a melee weapon. Next up is something that I actually missed in the previous episode, and it's a weapon that was shown being used by the Zaku Marine type, and that is the QEX-04M Aya. And like what we just covered, this also has very little information about it. It appeared in the manga MS Igloo 603. It is a giant fuck-off beam weapon, cannon, thing that is piloted or used by a single Zaku Marine type. This thing's goddamn massive. It's at least 4 Zaku Marine types laid out. It's a massive beam weapon which, looking at the size of this thing, you can understand what it looks like when it shoots. It's just gonna obliterate whatever's in its path. Now for some actual numbers we have, it is classified as a prototype underwater beam cannon, its form of discharge is classified as plasma beam, and it has an effective range of 2,000 kilometers. And if you see the cable in the back, this is attached to a massive battery. This is just so it can power this thing considering the amount of energy this thing consumes. Now, why is the Zaku Marine type there? Probably because he has finger manipulators so he can actually properly hold this thing and aim. Because of this, maybe the Zogok could actually use this. And why is it underwater? Well, it could be that the underwater helps cool it down, so, when you fire this thing, it doesn't explode. I highly doubt this thing can be fired on land. I wish we had more information or just had more visuals to show you, like depictions of it firing, but this is all we got, so let's move on. And so while the Marine Hyzak doesn't have too much information about him, and he's not the star of the show, he does spawn two variants, and the first one is the RMS 192M Zaku Marina. And just to get it out of the way, these names are all very similar, and at this point I'm pretty sure I've already messed it up, but to make it clear, this guy's the Zaku Marina. What we just covered was the Marine Hyzak. I probably called him the Hyzak Marine or the Marina Hyzak at some point, so sorry about that. So first thing we're going to cover is his model number, and it's not the usual MSM, and if you guys remember what I said in the beginning, that's because he's a Federation mobile suit. So breaking it down, if we look at RMS, the MS stands for Mobile Suit, which sounds straightforward, but if we look at the R, that stands for Renpo, and Renpo being a translation of Union or Federation, or in this case, Earth Federation, so we have Earth Federation Mobile Suit. Next is the numbers, and this is a bit odd, so the 192 is two things. First we have the 19, which stands for the location it was made. In this case, 19 is the Federation base at Jaburo, and the 2 is the model number, being classified as either unit type or model type 2. And as for the M, I'm 99% sure it stands for Marina. Now, appearance-wise, we do have a similar look to the Marine type, but the Marina has some key differences. He's a bit thicker in most areas like the chest and arms. The protective seal on his joints aren't visible, he has different shoulders, and he has a new looking head. This head has a unique mono-eye path, with it going around and going straight up. It's very similar to that of the 8 guys, and looking straight up with his main camera can help him with cruise mode. But at the end of the day, he still looks like a Zaku. Now for some stats and numbers, and just to say it flat out, the Marina is better in every single way. With the Marina having a gen output of 1440 compared to the Marine type's 951, a better sensor range of 4600 compared to the 3200, and finally if you look at the weights, the Marine type comes in at 60.8 metric tons in max and 43.3 on empty versus the Marina's 68.3 at max and 48.8 at empty. The Marina is heavier, however he is made out of a mix of titanium alloy and Gundanium, which is heavier, but considering he is taller by 1.2 meters, he carries more on him in terms of equipment and weapons and ammo, and his armor is stronger. The weight is not too much. And just to wrap everything nicely, the Marina is equipped with the Hydrojet Thruster backpack, which can switch and adapt itself on land or water. So unlike the prior mobile suit, the Marina does not face a penalty when he's on land and can work like any other mobile suit with no hindrance. So like I said in the start, he's a complete upgrade from the Marine type. But with that through, let's move on to the weapons, and the first thing up is his 4-tube spray missile gun. It's a small compact weapon with a cylinder body. We have a thin bump stock that looks collapsible, and it's rather low compared to traditional bump stocks. And in the front we have a handle grip for additional support and stability. Now what I just said might ring a bell, because this looks identical to the Marine type sub-rock gun. And that would make sense. However, we don't get any reference from it, and even the name is different. And this could be because Zeon's naming scheme versus the Federation's. Now we have two options, or something in between them, and it's from best to worst. Worst case scenario, the Federation got the sub-rock gun, looked at it, said okay, and just renamed it, so the Marina is using the exact same weapon the Marine type's using. And at best, the Federation looked at the sub-rock gun, changed only the internal so it looks like the exact same gun, but is different just internally, and just named it something different. But something that could help is we have a few notes. First is that it's still a 4-tubed missile launcher, it still has low ammo, and it's still an effective mid-range weapon. This is the exact same information we had for the Subrock gun, so if you guys have any theories, leave it in the comments. Next up, we have his 300mm Subrock launchers. He has two types in two different locations. So first up is his 3-tube ones located on his shoulders. 3 on each shoulder, meaning he has a total of 6 large rockets. These are similar to the Marine type's 4-tube rockets on his chest, and serve a similar purpose of being missiles to use during cruise mode. But he does have a few advantages, having 6 in total instead of 4, and them being 300mm instead of the 240mm. But besides that, they're the same vibe. Moving to his backpack, we have the other set, and that is his 4-tube 300mm Subrocks. Exact same as the prior, but instead of the shoulders, they're in the backpack. And while they're 4-tubed in name, it's 4-tube on each side of the backpack, so he has a total of 8 rockets. This weapon's similar to the Aqua type's backpack rockets, but he just carries more of them. Again, like the prior, it's a straightforward, simple tool. He just has significantly more rockets, but they still point up and they're still used for the same situations. But something has been noted with the Marina, that he's been shown to use these to cover his landing. He would pop out of the water, shoot rockets in the area he wants to surface, then follow them where the rockets will hit the area, and now him or his teammates can now surface that area much safer or with some sort of distraction. And speaking about being on land, we know these weapons point straight up, but we don't know if they can or how far they can arc. If he shoots these straight up on land, can these rockets tilt far enough that he can hit something from close, mid, or long range? And since I'm already on this subject, I want to go deeper into it because why the hell not? So the big question is, can the Marina tilt his body far enough to actually shoot these at a horizontal level? Does he have the ab crunch to tilt his shoulders or lean far enough so his backpacks can hit enemies at ground level? Or if there are enemies above him on like a mountain or something, can he just tilt his body and nail them with this? Now this does seem dumb because it is, however other mobile suits have done this. The most popular example is the gun cannon, where if the gun cannon wants to get into a firing range, he can actually get on all 4s and fire his cannons. And because the Marina has a mono-eye pathway that's on the top of his head, he can just simply move the main camera to the top of his head, get on all 4s, and do the exact same thing. Now is this just as effective? Probably not, because the gun cannon's cannons are goddamn huge. But there is another amphibious mobile suit that can do something similar, and that's the Zaku. The Zaku has head missiles, and he can fire these on land, but if he wants to fire these at a ground level, the Zaku just simply tilts his body, pointing the top of his head forward, and it's been shown plenty of times with the Zaku doing this. And it just comes again where, is this effective enough and safe enough and actually worth the time for the Marina to actually do this? For my 2 cents, if the Marina is on land, and he has plenty of rockets on him and didn't expend them already, and he's in a very specific situation, like maybe he has the height advantage and he wants to mortar the hell out of the enemy, then yes, this situation could be helpful. However, if the Marina was in combat, I don't think him getting on all 4s and pointing at the enemy is that effective, because this just seems much slower to do than the Zaku, for example, just tilting his head forward. But I would love to see you guys talk about this in the comments, so go right ahead. Now let's end off missiles with an optional weapon, and that's the 3-tube wrist-mounted rocket launcher. I only found one picture of him depicted with this, so I wanted to share it. It's a weapon that dates back to the 1-year war, and it's seen on plenty of mobile suits, and it's just a wrist-mounted launcher. It gives him quick access to a low ammo and not too high caliber weapon, but it gets the job done, and when you're in a pinch, anything's nice. Now finally we're moving to his most interesting weapon, and that's the Magnet Harken. Stored in the left forearm, it's a long, decent range cable that extends out towards the enemy mobile suit. The end has a strong magnet, hence the name, that anchors itself upon contact. And while you can do things like pull you or the enemy towards each other, But the main and most useful purpose is that this Y can deliver a high voltage and electrocute the contacted mobile suit. This can do a range of things, from staggering, damaging, or immobilizing the mobile suit. Now this might sound familiar because it's basically the same thing as the Groove Customs heat wire, but with a different name. And there are other mobile suits with something similar, like the Hambari having his Sea Serpent long wire, which again is a long thin wire that's stored in the forearm that can be shot out, and if it makes contact with the enemy, it's gonna give him a little jolt. They all have the same purpose and are used for the same thing, but they might have a little bit of difference, but in my research I couldn't see any difference between them. But there is a big difference when it comes to Marina in this tool. And this difference is, compared to every other mobile suit that has a weapon that's similar to this, the Marina is worse off. And this is not because his is physically worse or mechanically worse, or there's something tech-wise that is worse with the Magnet Harken, no. What makes his worse is two major factors. One is his low ammo count, and two is him having no dedicated melee weapon. And why are these two things a problem? Well, let me give you guys a situation, right? You're the Marina and you nail someone with the Magnet Harken, right? And either be in water or on land, you stun them. So what do you do there? Well, you can't melee them. Even if you're close enough, you don't have a dedicated melee weapon, and while you can punch and kick and just use blunt force, that may or may not finish the kill, so that's out of the question. And if we look at his weapons, his main gun has limited ammo, so if you've already been in battle, or if you've done this before, your ammo's just gonna get lower and lower. And if we look at the wrist-mounted 3-tube rocket launcher, again, similar thing, low ammo. If you're already in battle or done this before, you're gonna be in a situation where you can't use either. And if we look at the backpack and shoulder rockets, well, you can do them if you're in water, like you nail someone with this and you swim towards them. However, if you're in a situation where you can't do that or you don't have the time to awkwardly aim your shoulders or backpack at them, it can put you in a weird situation. And funny enough, the Marina lacks head Vulcans. While the Marine type and the Aqua type have them, this guy doesn't. So in a situation where you do Magnet Harken someone, you can't even unload your head Vulcans into them, which may or may not do something, but it would not be nice to have that option. Some out-of-the-box options: if you're on land, you could maybe throw a big-ass rock at them. The gun cannon has done it, so maybe you could. If you're in water and you do disable them, you can just drag them to the depths of the ocean, or like drag them towards you and try to throw them into the depths, and by the time the mobile suit comes to, they might get crushed by the underwater pressure, or that pressure might mess with the mobile suit or something. These are like best case, really creative options, which are kind of gruesome, but hell, if you're in a pickle, you gotta think of something. So besides his low ammo, his lack of a melee weapon, and a heat wire with an obvious flaw, the biggest problem with the Marina is simple, and can I please get a drum roll? And it's the same problem found on the Zaku, and let's get that drum roll going. He is simply a Zaku, but with some extra steps. Stats, weapons, performance, while they are nice, they all are limited by the Zaku's capabilities, and overall he just aged like milk. This is highlighted during Gundam Unicorn. During the Zeon Remnants Uprising, we see other amphibious mobile suits which were made during the 1 Year War age not so bad. If we get an example like the Guagu, because of his thick armor and his beam weapons, he actually held a fight. However, if you look at the Marina, we just see so many holes in them, literally and metaphorically. This is accompanied by a few key problems he has. First of all is what he's based off. Unlike the Guagu, which was based off the Eikai, a successful amphibious dedicated mobile suit, the Marina was based off the Marine type, a variant of an outdated and non-amphibious mobile suit, and the Marine type was declared an unsuccessful mobile suit by Zeon. Paired with low ammo, no dedicated melee weapon, and not having a beam weapon when at the time basically everything had a beam weapon. Now this might be debatable, but if he was made and deployed during the 1 Year War, he might have been an alright mobile suit. But for Zeta and Double Zeta, his flaws start to show. And in Gundam Unicorn, well, to put it simply, you're basically bringing a pampered Zaku too. But now we have one last Zaku to go over, and that is the RMS 188MD Zaku Diver. Now since there's so little info on this guy, this will be pretty damn quick. So let's start with the name. We have RMS, same as the Marina, then we have 188. Now the 18 and 19 both mean the same thing. It signifies that it was made in Jaburo. Then we have the 8, which just means the model number or the unit number, and we have the M, which again most likely stands for Marina, and the D, which most likely stands for Diver. So just to entertain you guys, as a whole we have the Earth Federation Jaburo manufactured model number 8 Marine Diver Zaku Diver. So let's start off with appearance, and surprise, he looks very similar to the Marine type. Since he is a variant, it would make sense. The only key differences besides the color is he does have more detail going on with him, but that could just be they wanted to throw in detail just because it looks nice. He still has the protective coating around the joints, he still has the similar shoulders. The only key things I can say is around his waist he has some more things on him. His head has these visors with this mouthpiece that looks bigger, and he looks like he has a much bigger backpack, but besides that, it's still a Marine type. Now for the brief history lesson. Being based off the Marine type, the diver's main purpose is to dive. Yeah, pretty straightforward there. It's a Zaku made for deep sea operations. He's classified as a deep sea salvage mobile suit. And how did he do its job? Well, surprisingly well actually. It's noted that the diver could reach depths deeper than conventional amphibious mobile suits, making him great for reconnaissance and deep sea salvaging. So what does conventional amphibious mobile suits mean? We don't know. Is this like mobile suits from the 1 Year War or after? Are we comparing it to like the Marine type, for example? And how deep can he go? How better is he compared to others? Again, we just not given any information about that. And that wraps up the history. He's one of those MSV mobile suits that don't really have any information besides 2 paragraphs. There's some artwork, there's a few things here and there. He barely appears in anything, if at all. Now onto some numbers. We have a head height of 17.7 meters compared to the Marine type's 17.5 meters, and we have an empty weight of 45.8 metric tons compared to the 43.3 metric tons. So he's just a teeny bit taller and a teeny bit heavier. And that's all the numbers we have. The only other information we have is this generator, which is obviously the Minovsky Ultra Compact Fusion Reactor, but like I said, not a lot of things, not a lot of information. So let's head on to weapons. Now every weapon he has is shared with the Marine type, and that is the lack of a melee weapon, his head Vulcans, and his sub-rock gun. And that is it. The only noteworthy and odd thing is his sub-rock gun, because while it's noted to be the exact same as the Marine types, it is visually different. The 2 big differences is first, where the extra handle would be, we see this small little screen. This is most likely a camera that just helps with aim assist in the deep sea. Maybe something with going that deep in the water, when you try to fire your weapons, you're gonna need that extra aim assist, or maybe they just specifically slap this thing onto him because why not? The second and most important thing is the nose of the weapon. In the prior we clearly see 4 tubes, however in this one we can only see one side, and we already see 5 tubes in it. And it's a fair thing to say that there's at least 3 extra tubes on the other side, and that means that this sub-rock gun not only has this additional camera on it, but has 8 tubes. So in total, the diver's sub-rock gun has better accuracy because of the additional camera, and either has more ammo because of the additional tubes, or just has a higher fire rate. And to mention again, the sub-rock gun on the diver is just noted to be the same as the Marine type, even though it has these 2 obvious differences, so it's either one of these 2 things. Either 1, they forgot to mention any of this stuff, or 2, and 2 is kind of a meta reason, is that whoever drew this didn't really take into account what the sub-rock gun looked like and added this stuff to it, so choose your poison. And that's his weapons, it's really just that. And why does he have so little? Well, it could just be maybe the standard amphibious weapons act weird if you go that deep in the water, so that's why he doesn't carry them, or it could just be because he is a salvage / reconnaissance mobile suit, he wants to carry as little on him as possible to make him as light as possible. And just to entertain you guys, the Zaku diver did appear in Battle Operation 2, which was given much more weapons just because of gameplay reasons. On his right forearm, he has a harpoon gun. This fires basic, simple, long, sharp, pointy rods that pierce the enemy. Simple in nature, on land, if you fire it, you want to hope to hit something like the cockpit or something important like the fuel causing a leak. But on water, that's when this thing strives, because you can hit something like a ship, pierce it and cause it to flood, and you can do the same thing with a mobile suit, so it's a pretty cool weapon overall. So as a whole, the Amphibious Zaku line was at best okay to non-functional. While some did their jobs, they just didn't meet the requirements that was wanted and got surpassed by traditional amphibious mobile suits. All 4 Zakus in questions share the same problems, and that's having to deal with being a Zaku. They all have to deal with the Zaku's frame and specs, which means its stats are going to be meh. They're all going to be lacking dedicated melee weapons, which is going to hinder their hit and run tactics, and while some had explosive weapons, those are nice, but it became a gold standard for amphibious mobile suits to have beam weapons, and beam weapons are just much better. And while some will say it's a flaw, I do think it's an important topic to think about. Why did the Federation tackle the Zaku Marine type when they already had amphibious mobile suits in terms of the Aqua Gym and the Gundam Marina, which had beam weapons? I do very much believe if they put the same amount of effort they put on the Marine type into things like the Aqua Gym, they would have gotten a much more successful amphibious mobile suit. Well, that's kind of debatable because the Aqua Gym wasn't really the best. But that's for another episode. And don't think the humanoid amphibious mobile suit design is a failure, because during Gundam Unicorn, Einheim Electronics made the G Zulu, one sexy looking mobile suit, and it got a variant, which is the AMS 129M Z Zulu, an even sexier looking mobile suit, and it's an amphibious G Zulu, and it actually worked. It worked well, it was modern for its time, and did I mention on how sexy this thing looked? God, this thing looks great! But that's for another episode. So thank you guys for watching this episode of Amphibious Analysis. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, blah blah, all that good stuff. If you have a mobile suit that you want to appear in this series, leave it down in the comments and I might consider it. But like usual, have a good one and I hope to see you next time.